Thanks for joining us. My name is Paul Putz. I'm the director of the Faith and Sports Institute, here for a faith and sports conversation with Baylor's new sports chaplain, Kevin Washington. Kevin, it's good to connect with you.
Man, it's good to connect with you too. Glad to be here.
Yeah. So you and I knew each other before you came to Baylor. So we have a little bit of a connection. You were at Texas. I heard you deliver a speech at a conference. And I was like, this is someone I want to come to Baylor someday. So on a personal level, I'm real glad that you're here and that we can be colleagues.
No, for sure. So am I. I became aware of what FSI was doing, the Faith and Sport Institute, and knew I had to be involved. That's something that's been instrumental in my world, is faith and sport. And so to find out that there's a place doing this at such a high level, once we connected, I was like, all right, what are you doing? How can I get more involved? What's going on? And we had talked about, man, it'd be great to work together.
Yeah.
Thought it might be on conferences or something like that, but thankfully
That's
it's in
right.
the same colors now, and we can figure out how to continue to take some more of the truth to the world through sport.
We got that green and gold. It looks
There
good.
it is. Let's go.
All right, so let's get to know you a little bit.
Okay.
We'll talk faith, we'll talk sports, we'll talk family. Let's start with sports. What'd you play?
Depends on what age. I tried to do everything. So obviously we stayed busy with athletics. I say obviously. That's what a lot of kids might just like parents are like, hey, go outside, do something.
That's right.
So we stayed pretty active, did a lot of sports growing up. Then getting into high school, majored in the basketball, football, and track. And then from there went and played football at the University of Notre Dame, and then finished my career after graduating from Notre Dame, played for 2 more years at Abilene Christian University while working on a degree there. So a lot of basketball, some baseball, then some track, but mainly football.
Yeah. What position in football?
Linebacker.
Okay. Did you have a player you were modeling your game after?
I don't know that I was, only because I switched positions. So I was a quarterback. I was a safety in high school, then a quarterback in high school, then a linebacker. And so I was just figuring out a lot of different things at the time. Didn't know enough to model my game after anybody. And so it was interesting. So I wasn't really thinking about trying to go play in college. I just like to play.
Yeah.
Watching sports was kind of like, that's fun. I'd rather either be playing it or I'll be playing a video game or watching a movie or something like that. So didn't know enough about who to model my game after to do anything like that.
Okay. So let's talk faith now.
Okay.
You have the sports piece, you're a college athlete, and meanwhile, you're also getting connected with Christianity and figuring out how that applies to sport. What was that journey like for you?
Man, so I grew up hearing about Jesus, knowing the gospel, knowing who he was, knowing that God was there, and, to a degree, trying to follow through, trying to say, okay, this is what this life should be like, this is what I should be doing, going to Bible studies, going to church. But it wasn't something that was real to me or personal to me until I got to the University of Notre Dame. And it was while I was playing and there was a pastor walking alongside me. Things weren't going the way that I wanted to. Hadn't been able to connect, faith and sport, because to me those were separate, even though I wouldn't have said that.
Yeah.
It had been more like, all right, I'm praying before and after, and I'm not, egregiously trying to injure anybody, so I must be good. But it wasn't until then that I began to figure out what those words meant and not just be able to use them in conversation. And then once, the Lord got a hold of me while I was at Notre Dame, the trajectory of my life changed. Got a lot more involved with mentoring, different kids in the church, learning and trying to grow. And that's when I began to experience the Lord more through sport. That's where I got the passion for it, because as I learned things, I had to figure out how to apply that, or how does it apply? Does it make me, more passionate or more physical as I'm trying to make a tackle, or does it make me not want to hit as hard and not play? It's like, man, that doesn't work. How do I make sure these things actually not coexist, but how do I make sure my faith actually enhances what I do? And that's exactly what happened. I got closer to the Lord through sport and want to make sure everybody else had the same opportunity.
Trust God, work hard.
That's it.
I see that. If you follow Kevin on social media, you see that. And that's kind of gets to the heart of things with kind of the message that you have.
Man, it does. And it's funny, it happened because I was put on the spot by a basketball coach who knew I was a chaplain at the time. He was like, all right, what's the word for today? And I was like, trust God, work hard. And I said, and I was like, bro, what are you saying? Like, you could have said something deep and like theological and like just, man. And then you think about it like that, it's kind of deep. And it is theological. And, if you think about those things, it really makes sense. And usually when I'm having issues in certain areas, like, it's all right, one of those two aren't working the same way they're supposed to, not pulling the same weight. So, I'm not trusting God, or I'm not working hard, like in certain areas in ways that I should. And so understand that, man, if I get those two pieces right, then I'll be good has been really good for me, in a very simplified way to say, all right, trust God, work hard.
Before Baylor, you are at Houston, working with FCA. You go to Texas, you're working with a football team. How did those experiences prepare you for the work that you get to do now?
Yeah, and so even before that, I went on staff with FCA in Abilene first, and so we were working with the three universities over in Abilene. So Abilene Christian, Hardin Simmons McMurray University, all Christian schools. Then you go to University of Houston and University of Texas, obviously not Christian schools, and now at Baylor. So we kind of got a little sandwich here. But it was good to be able to experience, like, man, whether people are at a Christian school or not, God's got his people everywhere.
Yeah.
And there's ministry and work to be done in all those places, but it's just going to look different. It's going to sound different. And so being at the University of Houston and then going to Austin, you just get a taste of the different flavors that are necessary when you're trying to share Christ or help people understand or bring it to different contexts. That's also where I just got a passion for, man, how do you creatively talk about who Jesus is? How do you creatively make experiences for these student athletes, for these coaches to experience them? Because if all I'm saying to you is Jesus is good, Jesus is God, and that's all you ever hear, but you don't see anything different or feel anything different, it's not going to have the same kind of impact.
Yeah.
And so people are always watching, whether they're doing it on purpose or not, to see, does the message line up with the man or does it line up with the experiences? And so those two places gave me a lot of opportunity to say, all right, how do we create something that where you can feel who Christ is through his words and through understanding what he's teaching.
And you have someone you're doing this with. You are married, have a partner along the way. Tell us about the love story, the Kevin Washington love story.
The Kevin Washington love story is God's grace, man. Met my wife in high school, so we known each other since high school. Dated the last week of high school into our first year in college. And she went and played softball in Western State. I was up there playing football in Notre Dame, so long distance. Took a break, which is good because both of us needed to come to know the Lord at that time. Once we got to know the Lord, came back together, God reunited us. We stayed in touch, just being good friends. But it was from there that he brought us together. We were finally like, all right, hey, we love Jesus, we love each other. Like, let's do this. Got married and just started a marriage of ministry, if you will. So I started working for FCA. A year later, she came on, started working for FCA, and that's just been the ministry. Is her work with a lot of the women's teams, me work with a lot of the men's teams. That's in Abilene, that's at University of Houston, that's to a degree at University of Texas. Now, clearly, I was on staff with the football team, so it's not just ministry, but she's still there meeting with young ladies and talking with them about Jesus. But more than that, allowing us to do life and ministry together. So it's not just me talking about how to love your wife or how to apologize to your wife for asking forgiveness.
That's a good one. You need that one.
Right. But being able to model that and to see that and to kind of let them be a part of our lives has just been huge, tremendous, and it's a good part or a big part of why we chose to come to Baylor. Is all right, how do we continue to do this on a level that we can do this intimately with one another, but then also with those we come in contact with.
So Baylor, we've got this summer. Super excited about this. So Baylor Sports Ministry Team, Faith and Sports Institute, some other campus partners. We have some events coming up. So let's start with the Fit Sports Leadership Summit. This is happening June 8th through 10th. We are co-hosting with the Center for School Leadership. We've got the Faith and Sports Institute, and then it is featuring Baylor Athletics. So think about school leaders. We've got the theology ministry piece. We've got the athletics piece. Really a unique combination. What are you excited about with the Fit Summit?
Man, exactly that you're bringing all those things together.
Yeah.
Another one of those themes that I've kind of come up with and been thinking through is, man, faith is always theory till tested. And so we can talk about the theology and we can talk about leadership, but until you test that in athletics, is it real?
Yeah.
Does it work? And so having the opportunity to do that this summer at the Fit Institute or at the Fit Summit is going to be exciting because we're going to talk about things that a lot of people have experienced, that they practice, that they're living out on a day-to-day basis. And we get to see, man, how does faith, how does leadership interact with athletics? How does athletics help us to learn more and grow in each of these areas? I don't think there's other places that are doing it quite like this. This is why we're here, why we're doing it, is what Faith and Sport Institute is all about. So for me, it's that mixing of all of them to see, hey, how do we do this at a high level? And when you've got the theory, when you've got the practicality, when you've got the leadership, that's when you've got the mix for something that's really special, and you can actually go do what you're talking about instead of just talking about what you think will work.
And, to think about school leaders, right? Like their calling is to work with young people, to shape them, to form them. We already know sports is more influential for a lot of young people than other activities they're doing during school. So if you're a Christian educator and sports are a part of your mission, you're going to get to come alongside other leaders who think about those questions
Yeah.
and figure out how we do this. I know one question you'll probably talk about because I've heard you give this talk and it's a good one, but you center on identity. Why is identity so important to this conversation?
Man, it's a conversation that everybody's having right now. Everybody is talking about identity, and the thing we got to be careful of is we can put a lot of platitudes into identity. Make sure you find your identity in Christ. Make sure you don't find your identity in sport. Okay, that's great. But that's like telling somebody, okay, cool, go out there and hit a home run. Like, that's it? That's all I got? That's hit a home run? You're like, all right, how do I hit this pitch? Or what do I do if it's inside or outside? How do I swing a bat if I'm a football player? And so it's one thing to say, how do we find our identity in Christ? It's a whole nother to say, how do we actually put flesh on that? How do we put the practices in place? How do we figure out what's actually molding our identity and then make sure we're intentional with those things? Because every single day your identity is being molded by something and someone. The question is, are you aware of it and are you in direction of those things? And that's why I think identity is so important, because it's going to come through in all that you do. Who you are comes through in how you compete. And how you compete is also going to continue to shape who you are. And so unless you understand all of those things at work, you can become someone that you aren't even aware of because you haven't been intentional about it. And one of the things that I've told a lot of freshmen coming in is, man, you have to define who you are or the world will tell you. And the same thing is so true for athletes, for administrators, for coaches, because there are pressures that not everybody else feels, that not everybody else can relate to. And you said it. You're going to be around people that have the same mission, that are in the same field. They understand the pressures. They understand the pressures of players, of parents, of what results they're supposed to be having. Do you get a scholarship? Do you not get scholarships? How much money is at stake with these things? All of those things can push your identity one way or the other. And so unless we're being very intentional about that, then we're going to have deformed identities because we're allowing other things to shape them, even if we don't want that.
Another big event coming up this summer, the Global Congress on Sport and Christianity. This is the fourth version of this event. It is for scholars and practitioners. So we get some of that theory you talked about. We get some theologians, philosophers, psychologists, the academics who have done research on sport and Christianity. But then we also get practitioners who are coming. We've got coaches, athletic directors, sports chaplains, sports ministry leaders. And it's a gathering where we get to have a conversation about sports and Christianity that we hope then can be applied in real life. So Global Congress, what are you excited about when you think about that event coming up?
That it is global. When you think about the different perspectives, we have one perspective, but our perspective is in Texas. Our perspective is in America, right? There are so many other pieces to ministry that we don't see that our brothers and sisters across the world see completely differently, that they see a lot more clearly. There's things that we'll be able to say and like, well, we do this, that, and the third. And be like, wow, that's really amazing. And hopefully that'll encourage us to be like, oh, wow, you think that's amazing? Great. Well, I just thought it was Monday. They're like, that's really good. And they'll be able to say the same thing. And we'll say, that's great. How did y'all come up with that? Or how did you trust God in that? And so to have a global Congress of athletic academians, you know what I'm saying? Like we got the athletes and the academians. They're like, man, this is great. We want to bring those things together, but like you said, get the perspective. Like the kingdom is multicultural, multinational. So why wouldn't we bring all of those pieces in? That's how we get the fulfillment of what we're supposed to be doing, what we're called to do. And we also get to check a couple of our blind spots. And so I'm all about global. Excited that it's here in Waco. So my first one, I get my feet wet right here. And the next time I'll be traveling with you to make sure we go wherever it is next.
Let's do it. Wherever it is. Yeah, every 3 years. So we'll be there. You've heard one of the keynote speakers. We have Sabrina Little. She's going to be coming to the Global Congress. She's a philosopher, ultramarathon runner. And she actually came for an event that we did together with Baylor Athletics, with FSI. What was a takeaway that you had when you think about the way Sabrina talked about character formation in sports?
That she has got to be so much closer to God than me to run an ultramarathon. Because I would be praying and then just probably wake up and be like, Lord, it didn't work. But to me, it was great to have the level of research that she brought to things that a lot of people that traffic in this world of sport and faith would be able to say, yeah, I think this, or I think maybe, and it's kind of fuzzy, but the way that she brings the research together, she was able to say, no, we've got the research that says these things. Here's the quotes, here's the research, here's all these different people, to put a fine tune on it, to put a fine point on it, excuse me. I think that was very encouraging to say, okay, these things we've been feeling and trying to put into words, she was able to do so, but then also had the research to bring that to bear. That is not just go trust this on faith or just believe us.
Yeah.
Like, man, we've got history with these things. We've got research with these things. And oh yeah, she's an ultra marathon, has been running it and doing this as well. So it's not just something that she's talking about. She's lived it, done it, coached it, and all those kind of things. So it was just really cool, encouraging to hear that, to have some of our student athletes hear that, our coaches, administrators, to see that, man, it's not just Christian lingo to say let's develop the person. I think, people have said it before, but one of the things that I really enjoy saying is, man, good people make better players. Like, and so if you're talking about student athletes, like, the more we develop them as people, the better they'll be as players and athletes as well. But it's not us doing that so that they are better.
Yeah.
We're doing this because they are better athletes. We want them to be better, not just athletes, but better people, to be fully made in the image of God. And I think she did a great job of tying those things together, all those different threads, showing the research and showing the practicality of it.
Awesome. I'm excited. We've got our work cut out for us.
Yes, we do.
It's going to be a good summer. Faith, sports, Baylor University, collaboration. Looking forward to it. What's in the rotation for you? What are you listening to musically? We'll end on that.
Man, musically right now, I'm all over this. I would say Jay Monty is one of the ones right now. Lyricist, love the way he kind of puts that stuff down. And then honestly, I've been going back to some of the old school kind of Kirk Franklin type stuff.
Okay.
And so I've been going back. It's been good just to kind of get that on repeat, get that on rotation again. But that, and then just, litany of podcasts and things like that, listening to Outside Rabbi, some of the crazy deep end type stuff. So we've been listening to a lot, trying to keep it moving. But I think that Jay Monty, old school Kirk Franklin, those have been some of the ones most recently that I've been getting into.
There we go. Love it. Well, Kevin, thanks for connecting with us and looking forward to this summer.
Yeah, absolutely. Me too.